Okay, so with that said, let's go ahead and dive on into our workshop for today. So first, I want to get a sense of kind of who's in the room or who's on Zoom. And so you're going to see a poll pop up on your screen right now. Um, I want to know kind of what role you are for the group that you're representing today. If you could just answer the poll on the screen, what your role is, whether you are the treasurer or the CFO or finance officer of some sort, if you're the president or if you're an authorized spender, or if none of these apply to you, which is also totally fine. I just want to kind of get a sense of who is on Zoom today. So I'll give you a few seconds just to answer that poll, and then we will keep moving. Um, just a few more folks waiting to answer this question. Almost there, almost there. Okay, it looks like we got the majority of people that are in the poll. So it looks like most of you in the room are president or the treasurer of your group. Not quite everyone. There are a few folks who are maybe a different, exec position, or maybe just a member of their organization, maybe an authorized spender. But majority of folks in the room are the president of your organization. Congratulations if you're the incoming person. If you've been in the role for a while, hey, congratulations on continuing to hold it down. I hope that this information is useful to you and relevant. If you again have questions, feel free to put those in the chat and we will get those answered at the end. So for today, we are going to, here's the game plan for us. We're going to talk a little bit about some budgeting basics, just some terminology, a few things that I'll go through in the presentation. We'll talk about what it means to actually create your group's budget and a few steps that you can walk through when doing that. I will introduce you to a few different budgeting tools that we have here at Duke, and that one of them specifically being relevant to your student organization, and then give you a couple of tips for managing and some best practices when it comes to dealing with your budget. So with that said, why does this matter? Why does any of this actually matter to your group? One of the things that we are really adamant about in student involvement and leadership is that your group really should know what financial resources you have. And we believe that that will help you better know what is and isn't possible for your group. I think a lot of times student organizations find that they want to accomplish something on campus or in the community or where have you, and they don't realize that it costs money, or there are, direct finances that are related to the thing that they want to do, and they don't know what their group's resources are, what is in their account, so they don't really know what they're working with. And so we believe that when you know what finances you have available to you and what resources are available on campus and otherwise, you're better able to navigate kind of being a student organization. One of the things that we find is that groups that don't understand their budget often commit to expenses that they can't afford, which leaves them in a really sticky situation of needing to uh, needing to try to find money to be able to cover an expense that they've already committed to. So that's one of the things that we see pretty often. Some of the things that we want to make sure that is that there are a couple of different funding that you can get, a couple of different places that you can get funding from university sources. So that's through Duke Student Government for undergraduates, which comes via Student Organization Finance Committee, or SOFC. We'll talk about them a little bit later in the presentation. For graduate and professional groups, graduate and professional student government, there's also the Cultural Engagement Fund. There's a few other places and spaces on campus, but one of the things that we really want to emphasize to you is that the funding from the university sources isn't going to be enough to cover the entirety of your group's operation. There just simply isn't enough funding from the university to be able to go around for student groups. And I know that you probably think, oh, it's Duke. There's a lot of money that, the endowment's huge. And that goes to a lot of other different places and spaces on campus. And so that probably sounds really weird coming from somebody that works from the school, but I'm on the back end and I see it. And as it relates to what's allocated to student groups, and what's allocated to different sources to be able to give to student groups, it's just not enough to cover, the 650 plus organizations that exist at Duke. So that's just something to keep in mind as you're thinking about building your budget, is that you can't solely depend on student government or, different funds from the university to be able to cover everything in your group's operation. The second thing is that group funds for recognized student organizations have to be maintained through the university. So if your group has a bank account somewhere off campus, let's talk after, because that's definitely not something you want to be continuing to do. And student organizations should not be having bank accounts separate from the university and elsewhere. It could have some tax implications and a few other things that really could end up in some deeper trouble than you want to be in. So if you have questions about that, again, stick around after we're finished and I'm happy to answer those questions. So moving on to the next slide, a couple of budgeting basics. I want to define a few things out for you. And I know some of this might sound really, really simple. So please just bear with me as we get through it. If you've never heard this before, welcome. You are not any further behind than anybody else. I just want to make sure that we are all on the same page as we talk through these things. So question, what is a budget? A couple of different definitions here. A budget is a statement of the financial position of an administration or student organization for a definite period of time based on estimates of expenditures during that period and proposals for financing them. That came directly from Merriam-Webster. I did not actually come up with that, but that is the definition of that Merriam-Webster uses. Another one that they use is a plan for the coordination of resources and expenditures. And a third is the amount of money that is available for or required for or assigned to a particular purpose. Any and all of those can apply to your student organization. It may be just the first one that you're looking at it as, okay, what is our financial position right now and how much money do we have? A budget could be for a specific or a defined event or a particular project. It could also be the amount of money that you have for a specific designated amount of time. So it just kind of depends on what you're looking at a budget being and how your organization chooses to use it. A few other things that we'll talk through, some key terms that you'll hear me use today. Revenue, and the way that we look at this in student involvement and leadership is it's the money that you bring in from various sources. That could be sponsorships, that could be donations, that could be fundraisers. If you're out on the plaza and you're doing a fundraiser or something like that, that is revenue. That any money that you're bringing in from various sources, funding allocations from the different bodies on campus. That's that. And then expenses are the required costs to accomplish your particular task or objective. So think about, buying supplies or rental fees or events or travel expenses, those kinds of things. Anything that your group is trying to do and it costs money, that's an expense. So when again, I know that might sound a little bit basic, but when we're talking through the rest of the presentation, those are the terms that we're using, and that's how we'll be using them. I know for folks that may be, econ majors or in, different finance programs, these things may not quite translate exactly to what you're learning in the classroom. This is just how we typically describe them for student organizations. So just kind of adjust your lens as you're thinking about finances when we're going through the budget here. A couple of other key terms that you'll hear me use today when we're talking about estimated expenses, what your group projects that you will either earn or spend when we're talking about revenue or estimated revenue or estimated expenses. It's just kind of what you think or what you anticipate might be your costs or what money you're bringing in, and then the actual funds that your group earns or spends after you get the receipt or you get the invoice or you get the actual cost completely hammered out. That is what you'll be looking at there. And then fiscal year. This is a defined period for accounting purposes. So Duke's fiscal year, just so you know, is from July 1 to June 30th. A fiscal year for your group, you can define that if you want to. For some people, it is the calendar year. For some people, it starts in February. It just kind of depends for group to group. One of the things that we recommend is that you look at it the same way that we do. But you don't have to. You can look at it as the term from your officers taking their role to the end of their term. You can look at it on an academic year, just kind of depends on how you want to do it. But just for Duke's purposes, the fiscal year runs from July 1 to June 30th. Okay, so thinking about creating your organization budget, we've kind of broken this down into 5 different steps for actually making this happen. The first is to assess your current financial status by taking a look at, what exactly you're working with as it stands right now. Second thing is set some goals. What is it that your group wants to accomplish? What is it that you want to get done during the year? A lot of times when you're setting goals, those financial goals are typically going to be aligned with what your organization's goals are for the year. Not always, but they probably should be in line, especially because, as we know, doing really anything in a lot of different places is probably going to cost money in some way, shape, or form. And so it's a good idea to be able to set a financial goal that aligns with your organization's goals for the year. Third thing, estimate your group's revenue, where you intend or anticipate that money will be coming into your organization. And so is that, through, like I said, a funding allocation? Are you planning on doing fundraisers? Are you looking at getting some alumni donations? Like, where do you intend or anticipate that you will get money from throughout the year? Fourth, estimate your expenses. What are some things that you anticipate costing money? If you already know that you have a couple of big events that your group does throughout the year, or some different tournaments that you travel to, or if you are planning on, getting the newest kind of supplies that are relevant to your group, you can kind of anticipate those expenses on the front end. It's not always easy to do every single thing that your group plans to do because, innovation happens in some really different times and places and spaces. So you can't always predict every single thing that you're going to do, but it's always a good idea to have these things charted out before you get into them. So if you can estimate your expenses, that's a really great thing to do on the front end as you're creating your budget, and you can adjust as you go. And then lastly, being able to balance your budget. So taking the revenue that you anticipate versus the expenses that you anticipate and making sure that those things align. Your expenses should never outweigh your revenue. And I'll explain in a little bit what I mean by that. But you should always have you should never plan on spending more money than you have. You can't spend money that you don't have. Example kind of to break down or assess your current financial status. Some ways that you can do that. You can review previous internal financial records. So if your group already keeps an Excel spreadsheet or Google Sheets, or however you're kind of managing your money, if you already have those records in some sort of internal document that you pass down from exec to exec, that's a great place to kind of check your records. If you all keep receipts or keep past kind of transactions, it's a great thing to do is to take a look at those. The second place that you can take a look is on Duke Groups in what we call the Money tab. So if you are currently listed as an officer for your organization, you should have access to something called the Money tab. And so when you go into your group's page, you should see a menu that looks very similar to what is on your screen right now. And on the left-hand side, you'll see a few different tabs, and maybe closer to the bottom is a tab that says money. If you click on that and then click accounting book, you will be able to see the full list of transactions for your group's funds, any money that you had coming in, whether that's from fundraisers or any funding allocations or anywhere that you got money, and then any money that went out. You should be able to see all of that for at least the last year. It may go a little bit further back. It just kind of depends on how long we've had records for your student organization. If your group went inactive for a while, it may take a little bit more to be able to get to those records, but you should be able to see those there. You should also be able to see a few transactions, and you should be able to download files to see receipts and everything of what was purchased. So if your previous exec board didn't really leave you great transition records, first of all, go ahead and start prepping now so that you can leave your legacy in a good way and pass that down to the next set of people. But you can at least see kind of what was purchased, when it was purchased, what it was purchased for through this transaction log in the Duke Groups Money tab. If you need help figuring that out or finding that, just stick around after and we can show you how to do that. Again, that is for people who are currently listed as an officer on Duke Groups. You may be an officer in your group, but if you're not listed on the group page, you won't have access to that menu. And as a side note, if you have submitted re-registration and you are a new officer, but that re-registration has not been approved yet, then you haven't taken over as an officer on the page yet. I'll explain re-registration at the end as well. And then the last thing that you can do, you can contact the Student Organization and Programming Finance team, or SOP Finance. For those of you that have fund codes that operate through Student Affairs, you are probably already familiar with the SOP Finance team, but if not, they're a team of payment specialists that work with Student Organization Finance, kind of very appropriately named, and they can help you take a look at kind of any financial transactions or records that kind of exist for your group, to make sure that you have the appropriate balance and know exactly what your group is working with. So again, you want to really get a good kind of hold on what your current financial status is. Again, check the goals that your organization has, and set some goals to make sure that you're going to be in a financially advantageous position to be able to carry out the things that you want. If you know, hey, we really want to put on a formal event for our organization because we really want to make sure that our members kind of come together and are able to congregate. Cool. You know that you want to do that, and that is a goal that your organization has by the end of the year. That's going to cost money. So go ahead and start to figure out exactly what finances you need. Again, by estimating your revenue, figuring out where you anticipate getting money from, estimating your expenses, figuring out how much things are going to cost, and then making sure that balance is aligned. Oh, I think I've gone too fast here. So a couple of different tools and resources that exist for you that you can utilize. Like I said, on Duke Groups, the Money tab, that's a great place to go take a look at what funds your group already has. If you're new to your exec position, you may have funds in your account that you are unaware of. But if not, you can see kind of what money you are already working with, and that will help you figure out, okay, cool, this is what we're starting with, or this is where we currently are. This is how much we, have to go in order to meet our goal. So that is one tool that you can utilize there. Second, Student Organization and Programming Finance, or SOP Finance, they have a few different resources. That link at the bottom of the screen, that duke.is/SOPF, and that is case sensitive. That will take you to their webpage. And on their webpage, they have a folder of resources that you can have access to that will kind of give you a couple of different tools that you can utilize in terms of tracking your budget or planning out your budget, or understanding exactly how to work with their team. So I highly encourage you to utilize that folder and utilize that team, utilize those resources. There are also a couple of tracking templates that you can utilize. I've taken a couple of screenshots that you can see on the screen here. In the upper right corner here, this is a budget report that we are piloting right now, and that should be available at the beginning, right before the school year starts. And so we're tweaking that and making some tweaks now to make that accessible to you. But that'll be a great place to be able to, like I said, plot out your budget, plot out exactly kind of what revenue you anticipate coming in, and different projects that you are thinking about doing with your organization. And projects can be meetings, they can be events, they can be tournaments that you plan on going to. And that template will have a guide for how to use that and how to use that successfully. And then at the bottom right of your screen here, this is a tracking spreadsheet. This one is available right now at this link. Again, duke.is/SOPF. It is case sensitive when you are typing that in. So take a look at that, take a look around the different website, and use those different tools and resources. Our goal is to be able to make sure that you have these and that they can help you kind of get into being able to plot out your particular budget. A couple of best practices. Number one, ensure that you have completed the most recent student affairs finance training. So finance training happens on an annual basis. And right now, the 2023-2024 finance training is currently available. We will have a new updated training available at the beginning of the school year. You will always want to make sure that you've completed the most recent student affairs finance training, so that you can have access to all the different resources and be able to request payments and that kind of thing. Second best practice, have a specified list of people that can execute your financial transactions. If everybody in the organization or everybody on your exec board has the ability to do your finances, it gets really confusing to have so many cooks in the kitchen, and it's really hard to know what money is coming in and going out of your organization. And so having a designated people that are responsible for your finances, such as a treasurer or a CFO or that kind of thing, or an authorized spender, that way, you know exactly who is spending out of your accounts, and you don't come up short later when you anticipated having money in your account. Third best practice, maintain transparency of your organization's finances. One of the things that we believe in and really encourage folks to do is to let even your general members in on what your finances are and kind of what you're working with, because they are probably contributing to that. Whether that is actually financially by kind of giving money, or if it is helping with fundraisers, or if they are the people that are on the front lines of hosting your meetings, or being at your events. And it also helps to kind of get buy-in from the group of what direction that you're going. So as you're goal setting with both your organization's goals and your financial goals, include your general membership in that, and keep people up to date on kind of where your finances stand, just so that everybody has a solid picture of what is happening with your group. Involve your membership in financial decisions. As you're kind of thinking about buying things, I'm not saying that you need to involve them in every single detail and every single thing, but the more people feel bought in, the more they are going to likely invest in your organization, not financially, but maybe financially, but they invest their time, invest their talent. And the more you can include them in that, they will continue to come back. And it helps you have some accountability too, and not feel like the entire burden of your organization is resting on your shoulders, specifically financially. And then the fifth tip, fifth best practice is to review your budget regularly. So if you are the person that is responsible for this, keeping an eye on this, I would say at least on a monthly basis, if not more frequently. I would recommend probably, if you are the treasurer, weekly. But if you are a different officer that maybe has some oversight over the budget, or just is somebody that's peeking in, definitely take a look at it, and report that out to your group maybe on a monthly basis, just so that you know where you are. If you have fundraising or financial revenue goals that you need to meet, just keeping people updated on kind of where you are, or if you have expenses that you're plotting out, it helps to kind of review that on a regular basis and keep people informed. That way, if there's something that maybe you missed as one person, maybe somebody else can help catch that on the back end. A couple of key contacts as you are going through and making your budget. Our student organization programming and finance, SOP Finance, they handle purchasing, deposits, and account balances for student organizations with student affairs fund codes. They can be reached at sopfinance@duke.edu. And like I said, if you that website earlier, duke.is/SOPF, will take you to their website to kind of give you a little bit more details about them. Student involvement and leadership. So that's my office. We are a centralized team for student organization support services. So we may not be the folks that are exactly helping you, but we're a good place to start in terms of getting you connected to the right people, or being able to potentially answer some questions. And our email is leadership@duke.edu. Again, that's student involvement and leadership, and that is where I work. And then a couple other key contacts. The Student Organization Finance Committee. This is a committee underneath Duke Student Government. They allocate supplemental funds to undergraduate student organizations. So if you are a graduate or professional student organization, you do not need to contact SOFC. Their email is sofc@duke.edu. And again, they have funding for recognized student organizations, but their funding is limited, as they want to try to help as many organizations as possible. So please do not rely on them for every single penny that you need. And then same thing for graduate and professional student government. They help allocate supplemental funds to graduate and professional student organizations. They can be reached at GPSG student organizations at duke.edu, or you can use GPSG at duke.edu. Either way, they will get you to the right person in the right place. Those are just a couple of key contacts. With that said, I do have another quiz poll thing for you. So you should see that on your screen right now. There are 2 questions. If you would not mind, go ahead and just take a look at that and answer the poll as you see them on your screen. So the first question being, what does SOP Finance do? And the responses being funding requests, process payments, build your budget, give advice on crypto. And then the second question, with which of the following can you apply for funding? I just want to kind of gauge folks there. So I'll give you a few seconds just to answer that question, or answer those 2 questions, and then we'll come back and give you the actual correct answers to both of those. I just want to help dispel some myths as we're going through. So this is also a great way to check to make sure that we're all still in the room, still participating. I want to make sure that everybody gets credit for being here. And this is a great way for me to be able to do that, just in case technology does not work. Almost everybody in the room. Almost. We're still missing a few folks. So if you have not answered the poll, please go ahead and do that. Okay, we have got almost everybody. So I am going to stop the poll there. Okay. So for that first question, what does SOP Finance do? The correct answer was process payments. SOP Finance, Student Organization Programming Finance. I know that the acronyms are really similar, so I know that we can't control that. But SOP Finance helps process payments. They also help with making sure that if you have any money to deposit, they'll help you with that, but they do not hear funding requests. If you need to get money that you do not already have, do not contact SOP Finance. They cannot help you. They can assist with building your budget a little bit. Is a little bit of a trick question. If you need some help with like some of the different kind of resources in their folder, but generally they're going to be helping you process payments. No, they will not give you advice on crypto. And then second question, which of the following can you apply, or with which of the following can you apply for funding? The two correct answers are SOFC and GPSG. SOFC for undergraduate groups, GPSG for graduate groups. Again, SOP Finance, you cannot apply for funding through them. They do not have funding to give you. And my office also does not have funding that we can give out. So just a couple of things that I wanted to share there as we're kind of moving through this. And honestly, folks, that was really all we had to kind of give you in terms of budget building. I'm going to stick around after for folks that want a little bit more in depth on actually building the budget. But I just wanted to give you a couple of kind of the basics as we go through as you're getting started with your organizations. I also recognize it's the summertime and you may be at your internship or what have you. So we wanted to keep these sessions as efficient as possible. A couple of important dates that I want to remind everyone of. Annual re-registration is open until September 15th, 2024 at 11:59 p.m. via Duke Groups. If you have not already completed that, please make sure you do so. You can find a link to complete re-registration on the Duke Groups homepage at dukegroups.com. If you have already submitted your re-registration and it has not yet been approved, that means that someone has not yet confirmed that they are a member of the organization or an officer based on what has been submitted. So make sure that you have that. If you have questions about that, feel free to stick around after, put it in the chat, email us, leadership@duke.edu, and we'll make sure that we get your questions answered. But again, that is open via Duke Groups. If you are currently listed as an officer, you will have access to that. If you are not currently listed as an officer, you will not have access to that. If your listed officers have all graduated, just send us an email and we will be sure to get you set up. I'm going to stop the recording there.